Hey everyone, this is Andy Wheelock, and this is the 2015 NiceGate Conference. Hard to believe it's come back again. I have an amazing first guest, which is Tom Whitby. And Tom, you've been kind of a pioneer of ed tech for a long time. Can you just tell me your background in a nutshell?
My background. Well, I was a secondary English teacher for 34 years, and I was an adjunct professor for 6 years in St. Joseph's College in Long Island. I'm a former board of director member of NiceGate. I think I was on the board for 7 years. I'm an author of 2 books about educators needing to collaborate. I'm the founder of EdChat. I have a weekly radio show on BAM Radio called the EdChat Radio Show. And I travel around the world talking about educators using social media for professional development.
Tell me quickly about your most recent book.
The most recent book just came out 2 months ago. I really had a great idea for a book. I only have to write the first chapter, and I got some of the best people to write the subsequent chapters. In it, I've got 4 men and 4 women, if I can remember who they are. Steven Anderson, Kyle Pace, Adam Bello, and George Kouros were the 4 guys that I got. And Kristen Swanson, Pam Moran. My mind is blanking out. And 2 other women. And I will think of Lisa.
Nielsen.
Yeah, Lisa Nielsen.
Okay.
And oh God, I'm looking at her. Shannon.
Miller.
Okay, you are good.
All right, yeah, I love this stuff. This is the stuff I dig into. You're talking about all my favorites. You know, I've got their sports cards. I've got their trading cards.
That's exactly why I chose them to write for the book. Everybody has their own niche, and they're all experts in their areas. So what better to do than to get them to write a chapter in a book about that which they know best?
Those are some really powerful voices. Do they all have a different content area that they're talking about?
Yeah, every one of them has an area of expertise. George Kouros, I had write about blogging. Shannon Miller talked about student voice. Lisa Nielsen talked about similar things in student voice. I'm trying to think of Pam Moran. She's one of the outstanding superintendents in Virginia. She wrote about policy making for social media within schools. So everybody took their area of expertise, and that's what they wrote their chapter for.
For a book like that, to me, I'd almost think, I want to get a digital copy of it so I can link out to everything. Do you think, especially in ed tech, that's the kind of book we're going to be using as a book that can be edited, adjusted, and
no, I don't think, not yet. I don't think people are really ready for it. When I say people, I'm really talking about the educators more than the students. There's a big difference between 21st century learners and 21st century educators. Many of our 21st century educators are still steeped in the 20th century. We're as much a victim of our 20th century education as we are products. There are many educators who are very comfortable doing what they did in the 20th century, and it really it's applying less and less to the 21st century learner. That's why my first book was called The Relevant Educator. In order to stay relevant, we have to keep up to date with what's going on, and we do that through collaboration. And the means of collaboration today happens to be through social media, because you can be in contact with the largest group of educators globally than you could if you had to meet them face to face. We've always had collaboration, from the beginning of education, from the beginning of time. We've always collaborated, but you were limited to being in the same place with people to collaborate with. Technology changed the game for that. It's enabled us to talk to people around the globe at any time that we want. I've been invited, through social media once again, and collaboration. I've been invited to conferences around the world. 2 weeks ago, I was in Doha, Qatar, talking in the Middle East about the very things that we're talking about here, collaboration using social media. So that's what people are doing in the 21st century to stay relevant. And we don't have enough of our educators in American education who are doing that. They're tied into the way they learned and what they think is beneficial for their students. Yet it's because it's an area that's comfortable for them to remain in, as opposed to learning something else. We often talk about we want our students to be lifelong learners. Well, that just doesn't apply to students. It also applies to educators. They have to be lifelong learners as well. And the tools that we use for learning today, especially when you're directing your own learning, happen to be the tools of social media. So until teachers and educators get on board with this, it's going to be a slow process making this change.
I guess the follow-up to that is, how do we get them on board?
I don't know. I've been trying to do this for years. I think one of the things, what you're doing right now, is one way to do that. Once people start to see the collaboration that's going on, the people that you come in contact with, that you're able to talk to and put up on the internet, the kinds of ideas that these people are talking about, that you're exposing to the people that you come in contact with. That's all, one small step in getting people to collaborate more, exposing them to the types of tools that we have, like Google Hangout for collaboration. There's also Skype for collaboration. There's also, probably a half a dozen other things to do. And it's important to remember that change happens so rapidly that we can't hold on to one specific tool, because next month that tool could be gone. So we have to learn to be flexible and to change. And those tools generally that come along after what's here are usually better and more comprehensive than anything previous. So better and better. But we do have to keep in mind that we're in a computer-driven society, and change is very, very rapid, and it's not slowing down. So, as an educator, if you're standing still at this point, you're falling behind day by day.
You've been on the forefront of Twitter as a professional learning tool and network. Tell us about where Twitter is now. Tell us, maybe, I told you the story kind of off camera of my experiences. A lot of times I ask teachers, are you on Twitter? And I get kind of a befuddled look,
Yeah.
like, why would you want to be on Twitter? Because there is a component of just entertainment and, frivolous kind of value.
Telling people what you had for lunch.
Right.
That's how it's often described.
Right. So I guess tell us your kind of journey about Twitter, how you started, and where we think we can go with it, maybe.
Well, my first exposure to social media was actually through LinkedIn. It had nothing to do with Twitter. I started when I first started teaching. I had taught English for 34 years, and I thought that I could take over a methodology class as a professor, and I'd be able to teach kids how to be an English teacher, because I had done it for 34 years. And after my first day of classes, I figured out I had no idea what the hell I was doing. So I immediately went to LinkedIn and started a group called Technology Using Professors, because what I wanted to do was teach students how to use technology within the classroom. And I was having a tough time doing that, because many of them were fighting the idea. So I wanted to find out what other professors did. And that group now has got about 17,000 professors from around the world involved. So that was my first exposure to understanding globally what happens in collaboration. And it again enabled me to direct my own learning. I only formed that group because I wanted sources, collegiate sources, that I could go to for references to being able to do things, and it worked out very well for me. And it was through that I started to discover people using these little tiny URLs, and I was asking them where they got that URL from, because it was all great information, and then they said it was Twitter. So like everybody else, I got onto Twitter. I signed up for it, had no idea what I was doing, and dropped off for 3 months before somebody explained it to me. And then once they did, it took off. And at that point, this was early on when Twitter first started. So, I mean, we're going back 8 years, 9 years. We started having chats on Twitter. And what I liked about the chats was that people would get in and they would put their 2 cents in, and we would have this great Twitter chat or discussion. But unless you were on the Twitter stream at the time, you had no idea what was going on. So I was working with Shelley Terrell. You probably know Shelley Terrell. And Stephen Anderson, who is Web 2.0 Classroom. And the three of us had these conversations going. So I said, why don't we do it a little more formally? So we came up with some topics, and we set a time that we would alert all of our followers that we're going to have a discussion on this certain topic. And we chose Tuesday. At the time, it was called Teacher Tuesday because back then, teachers used to use Tuesdays for making recommendations for following other teachers. So it was called Teacher Tuesday. So we decided to make that a 7 o'clock chat because it was convenient for me to do it at 7 o'clock so I could watch my TV shows starting at 8 o'clock.
Sure.
So we did the chat, and we had like 1,000 people on the first chat that we ever did. It was very successful. And within 3 weeks, we were getting requests from people in Asia and people in Australia who were either staying up till all hours or getting up very early to follow the Ed Chat. And that's when it hit me again, the global reach of social media. So what we did was we created, rather than changing the time, because there's no time that we could change it to that would make everybody happy, we actually started a second Ed Chat at noon. So we have 2 Ed Chats, noon and 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we've been doing that for 7 years now. And it's been quite successful. And back in the old days, we trended several times, and to trend back then was a very difficult thing to do. And we were in the top 5 trending topics on Twitter several times. So.
If you could wave your magic wand and change schools to maximize learning for kids, what would they look like?
What I would do is forget about maximizing learning for kids. I would maximize learning for their educators. If we're to better educate our kids, we have to first better educate their educators. And I think this will be done more and more through collaboration, through teachers directing their own learning, through teachers taking control of their learning so that they can best serve the students that they're teaching. And once we start to do that, and they begin to collaborate and understand that collaborative learning through social media and modeling that for their kids, they will understand what it is in the new model of teacher that we need to do. We need to it's more important that we teach our kids how to learn than to teach them what to learn. Because quite frankly, at the rate things are changing, we don't know what it is our kids are going to have to learn. They're going to be occupying jobs that don't exist today. So we can't tell the future. We don't know what it is they're going to have to learn. So the best we can do is teach them how to learn. So when the time comes, they can direct their own learning to meet the problems that they have to face. So, the old model in the 20th century, we would teach them what to learn. We don't need to do that anymore. So, when we talk about the paradigm shift in education, I think the shift is from teaching kids what to learn to teaching kids how to learn through creative thinking, through collaboration, through communication, all of the things that we use technology tools for learning and enable them to do that. So.
You mentioned you have a kind of new projects on the horizon. What are you working on these days?
Some people are trying to talk me into doing a 3rd book, which I will do probably with Stephen Anderson. We're really talking about it now, about the mindset of a 21st century educator. So we'll probably be doing that. And once again, I'm on the circuit, going around, traveling around the world to different education conferences, doing sessions, talking to people, meeting people, and trying to get people to understand what collaborative learning is and through social media.
Okay, Speed Geek questions. These are just short answer.
Okay.
First computer.
Oh. Okay, going back.
I'm a Commodore 64, just so you know.
My first, when I talk about technology, even before the computer, the first calculator that came out, where it wasn't a big thing, it was like a portable calculator that could add, subtract, and multiply and divide. It cost me $99, and I got it from Sears. And I got it on sale, and that was so I could calculate my averages for grading time. And that was the first time they had come out with a small calculator that could do that. And then after that, very shortly after that, they used to send them out for free. You know, with it was the gift that you got if you signed up for something. It was crazy to go from $100 calculator down to nothing. So I guess my first computer might have been it had to be an Apple, something Apple. You know, going back then.
Okay. The 2E maybe? Or,
yeah.
Okay. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Both.
Okay. That's a fair enough answer. Favorite educational blog?
My Island View, which is what I write each and every week. Actually, it's not even each and every week. Well, what I found, there is a site called Teach 100. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
Teach 100, teach100.com. They have listed, it's probably well over 1,000 education blogs right now, and they have an algorithm that figures out the number 1, number 2, number 3. What I don't like about it is that they group all of the blogs together so that the big conglomerate blogs, the ones where they take different bloggers and like SmartBrief and Edutopia and all those other ones, are logged in with people who are single bloggers like myself. So I think that's like an unfair thing, but it's not really a competition. So it enables you to take a look at the top blogs in education, and you click on anyone that tells you about the blog, and it'll take you directly there.
Wow.
So it's a very good resource.
I have to follow that. Well, Tom, I've taken a lot of your time. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
It's a real honor to meet you face to face.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.